What is going on, Amazon sellers? Welcome back to the weekly live news and Q&A show built just for you. I'm Chris Grant, along with my pertinacious co-host, Chris Rasick. And today, as always, we're going to chat a few pieces of news of interest to you, the Amazon seller, and of course, take any questions that you have relating to Amazon, online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, or wholesale. And I see we've already got some questions in here. That's fantastic. Chris, how's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. Although I haven't sourced anything yet today. Like it's one of those days, like there are two types of unproductive days, I think. You know, the one where you're just not focused, you know, and you just distracted, you know, you're just procrastinating, whatever, you know, or just whatever, and you don't get anything done. But then there are the days where you feel like you're doing a lot, but yet you still haven't gotten to, you know, those crucial things that you need to do every day, like source, you know. And it's one
Absolutely.
of those days, the latter.
Yeah, I hear you. I definitely have not sourced anything either today, but I have not like sat down. It's I know the feeling. Jerry, I definitely need some sun on this forehead. I'm trying to get a little bit more vitamin D, and so the hat has been gone for a little while. But yeah, great to see everybody here. You know, you guys have probably heard me say that an Amazon business is built on hitting singles and doubles. You know, those products that make you $2 in profit, $3 in profit. And you find the big winners because you need to put in the time inside the batter's box and take tons of swings. But what if you could sub yourself out and put in a batting machine? Well, that's what this week's sponsor does for you. It is Tactical Arbitrage. It subs in and it looks for those singles and doubles and even those home runs and grand slams, puts them on a tee for you so that you can take a swing at them and still hit them even 4 beers deep instead of having to wait for that live pitch. It increases your surface area for serendipity because it can work while you sleep or play with the kids or crack open that fifth cold one. If you want to learn more about it, head over to cleartheshelf.com/tactical and go ahead and draft Tactical Arbitrage onto your team now. And that is that's the ad spot for this week. There's some interesting news this week. A New Jersey Congressman, Christopher Smith, has decided to take some time to send a letter to Amazon. Now, not a surprising district for a letter like this to come out of, seeing that in New Jersey, per capita, it has one of the highest, if not the highest, concentration of Amazon sellers. And I thought that I would just read the actual entirety of the email that's been leaked onto the internet. It seems like there should be a second page of which I have not been able to find. But this letter says, and it's written to Stephen Hartel, which is the vice president of U.S. public policy over at Amazon. It says, Dear Mr. Hartel, I write to you today on behalf of many constituents who have reached out to me regarding the sudden and unexpected suspension of their Amazon seller accounts and the devastating impact this has on their business, employees, and families. As the congressman for New Jersey's 4th congressional district, I've heard of hundreds of seller accounts in my district alone that have been locked down by Amazon with very little communication or detail. Most have received a generic form letter type response stating the action is in accordance with Section 3 of the Business Solutions Agreement, yet there is no information provided to explain how Section 3 specifically relates to their case or what specific products may be in question. I've been advised that when my constituents, your selling partners, attempt to contact Amazon to determine the exact issue, offense, product, or supplier, most receive no assistance at all. After days and weeks of calls and emails to Amazon, the lucky ones get an inadequate video or phone call that typically ends with no resolution. Many also note they are led on by cryptic or non-existent appeal process, There is little or no opportunity for direct contact with an Amazon representative with whom the constituents can advocate to get their businesses released and assets rightfully returned. And no information as to which product or supplier is in question or creating a problem, if there is even an authenticated problem. The forced arbitration process from the business seller agreement proves costly and limited in providing discovery opportunities for the third-party seller trying to gather information and recoup their own assets. Perhaps most troubling is the fact that after making a seemingly random determination, Amazon holds all inventory, even products unrelated to the offense, and confiscates hundreds of thousands of constituents' dollars with no return date in sight. The final result is the total devastation of businesses and livelihoods. Now, I've got lots of opinions about this. My first one is it's a little on the nose that a government representative, from a government that is known to seize assets of people who may or may not be, have done something wrong and hold them for an incredible amount of time, like maybe flying from here to California with $10,000 or $20,000 in cash and it getting taken away. It seems a little on the nose. But other than that, I'm just not sure if I want government involved in a lot of matters. I like my government, at an arm's length. However, this is kind of nice, and I appreciate what this person is doing for their constituents. But I don't think that this is going to move the needle at all, at least not from one congressman out of New Jersey. I do think that if this is the way that sellers want to go, which I'm not against. I'm not against sellers, quote unquote, unionizing and taking some collective action. But if sellers want to do this to get the idea across to the folks in the ivory tower that, they mean business, then going to have to get representatives across the country to send letters like this. But hopefully, something like this could make Amazon rethink, suspensions, IP complaints, make it a less opaque process. I don't care if everybody got suspended if there was a clear process for coming out the other side. But the other thing I think Amazon sellers need to think about, and something I was reminded about by a podcast I was listening to, is no matter how big a company is, they're all a mess on the inside. I think a lot of people think that big companies are these well-oiled machines and the trains run on time. But in reality, it's an absolute clown show. Nobody knows who's driving. Nobody knows who's in or out of the clown car. And honestly, it's a wonder that anything ever gets done. I think too many people have no idea what's going on at Amazon size. I think that may actually be where a lot of the problem with Section 3s lie. I don't know for sure, but I have this sneaking suspicion that a lot of seller support is, I don't want to say outsourced, but hired out to companies like Amazon does with their last mile delivery. And I know I've said this before, but I just get this sneaking suspicion that, Amazon's like, oh, well, we've got all these policies and you need to make sure to follow them. But, here's the contract. You go in and you handle all of this stuff for us, and we're just going to pay you a flat fee. And in that case, if that is true, I don't think that the incentives are aligned, because those companies that run the call centers, run the seller support, or even if it's an interior team, their incentives seem to be, let's move as many of these through and click the done button, rather than let's actually figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Here's a question. Could Amazon, outside of hiring a small nation of additional employees. Like the way Amazon is right now, could Amazon ever get stuff like this right? Because I'm not sure. I'm not sure they could. Right? I mean, there's going to be, because, and I don't know if it's directly related, but when I first started 5 years ago, and you continue to hear it, you have people complaining about, they always think it's Chinese sellers, that people hijacking listings, jumping on stuff, changing the listings, hijacking listings completely, even if it's private label, right? And there's all this fraud. And then how would Amazon get rid of that? How would they dial it in to get the exact number of people that they need to remove off the platform? I think that's impossible. It's either going to be an effort that is too little, and in which case the people who are still being affected by it are still going to be the loudest voices saying, hey, you said you were doing this, but I'm still having this issue. Or they're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and they're going to make it overly comprehensive, and it's going to ensnare good sellers who did nothing wrong. And then the same issue with, well, look at what was it, the pesticide issue, where the makeups, there was a bunch of makeup and just ridiculous stuff was being removed and suppressed because of a pesticide. A bot went crazy thinking that it was the pesticide. It took over a week for Amazon to realize it, and until we started hearing people and seeing it on my own account, for one, this stuff dropping off. So could Amazon even get it right?
History says no. I mean, this, we've talked multiple times about how Amazon ebbs and flows with different things. We talked about it. I just recently, I can't remember if it was you and I or someone else, but, gating ebbs and flows. I mean, a couple of months ago, you could take a picture of your shoes and send it in and you get ungated. And then now all of a sudden, things are locked up hard. It's taken multiple submissions. You have to send in invoices for everything. You're not getting as many auto ungates. And I think that, and we know that the same thing has happened with Nike listings in the past. We've seen that recently. We've also seen it in the past where Nike and Amazon have teamed up to try to get rid of counterfeit sellers, and they take out a bunch of good sellers along with the counterfeit sellers. They're one way or the other. It's either the gate is way too open, or we slam the gate shut for a while to try to curb some of this. There doesn't seem to be a way for them to figure out, how can we put all of these people, through the eye of a needle and actually get it right. I have no idea which one. I mean, can they do it? I don't know. I want to think there's an answer, but I'm not smart enough to figure it out.
Well, yeah, if Andy Jassy keeps adding all these fees and saving all this money, maybe the bottom line gets a little better, and they have some more resources. You feel bad for Amazon, because
right,
if they weren't in big trouble, they wouldn't be squeezing us so hard, right?
Right.
Wink, wink.
Luke, you read the second page this morning. Yeah, that was the file. I was looking for the second page. I think I found the same file you did, and it has been deleted now. So he accused of discriminating towards the Orthodox in New Jersey. What that means is the Orthodox Jewish community. There's a large presence of Orthodox Jews in New Jersey and New York, and they are a lot of them are in retail. Retail is a strong business in that community. All right. And GSD, my theory on support: contracts are on a cost plus basis. By not solving a problem, more follow-up calls come in. Now the contractor points at call volume going up and needing more help equals more money. That's an interesting, I like it. I love putting on the tinfoil hat about this kind of stuff. I think that is definitely something that could happen.
It's like anybody work fast food. You have order times, right? And sometimes you just got to kick the can and clear an order out and have them pull up until the nuggets are done,
Right.
but you gotta mark that order was completed because corporate's going to see your numbers. So
Yeah. Some of our friends and associates are out in the city of San Francisco right now for the Walmart conference that's going on, and there is plenty of news on retail news websites, which I'm sure there's not a lot of Amazon sellers scouring retail news websites like we may, but things seem to be heating up between Amazon and Walmart a little bit. Now, my opinion is that Amazon and Walmart are probably the only marketplaces really worth spending much time talking about. We could talk Temu a little bit. I know they're starting to bring in US brands. I don't see a lot of traction happening there long term. But according to the latest payments intelligence study, Amazon Prime is still the champ when it comes to subscriptions. Now, this number blew me away. I knew the number was high, but 67.3% of US consumers are signed up as Amazon Prime members. That is a massive number. 2/3 of the country has an Amazon Prime membership, and that's up from 65.4% last year. So, nice little steady climb, not a lot. I have no idea how much more room that they have the ability to grow the Amazon Prime membership. Maybe the NBA deal works out in their favor. Maybe NFL gets a few more folks there this year. But here's what's interesting. They said Walmart Plus is catching up fast. Only 30.2% of consumers subscribe to Walmart's membership program, but that is a jump from 23.4% last year, or a growth of 29%. And then they compare it to Amazon's modest 3% bump, which I don't think is fair at all. A little bit of massaging the words there a little bit. Because if I recall, when Amazon was in growth mode, they were hitting 30-40% growth year over year with Amazon Prime memberships as well. But yeah, Amazon definitely has the numbers, but Walmart's gaining ground, and they go on to say that they think this might signal a shift in the retail landscape. I think we need to take that with a big grain of salt here, but especially because Walmart is continuing to attract more and more subscribers. So let's talk spending a little bit. And here's where it gets really interesting, and it kind of blows holes in their earlier arguments. Amazon's recent Prime Day had record-breaking sales like it does every year. Reports are showing an 11% increase in spending from last year, totaling $14.2 billion during Prime Day. But over at Walmart, things were not quite as rosy. They had a competing summer sales event, and they saw a drop in participation from Walmart Plus members. Only 14% of consumers made a purchase, which is down from 20% in 2023. So, the takeaway here, Amazon Prime is a good thing. It means more customers. It means spending more. It means they're loyal. Walmart Plus is growing. There could be a growing audience of shoppers over there, and they are going to grow their marketplace. We've talked a little bit about in the past how some people say, oh, well, there's only so much of the pie. I don't think that's the case. I think they can both continue to grow, since e-commerce is only 16% of total retail sales. We've got a whole lot of runway for both of these marketplaces to continue to get bigger and bigger. So is it time to become an Amazon seller and drop Amazon like a crazy X? No, absolutely not. Remember, while their marketplace did $100 billion last year, not their marketplace, they did $100 billion in e-commerce sales last year, which is a big number that Walmart is touting at their conference. 10 billion of that came from their marketplace sellers, compared to the 600 and like 50 billion from Amazon, where 68% of it came from their third-party marketplace sellers. But it would be a good idea for us to keep an eye on what's going down in Bentonville, Arkansas, and all the things that are coming out of Walmart. I think it should be interesting, and I think it will be good for marketplace sellers throughout the years, because a competition is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, number one, the fact that both marketplaces are growing is a very positive sign, right?
Mhm.
That reinforces, that's the silver lining to a lot of the bad news that we seem to gnash our teeth over for extended periods of time. That's my retort to the saturation argument.
Mhm.
However, touting, trying to tout Walmart's growth percentage over Amazon's growth percentage is laughable. I mean, that's the equivalent of like saying, the assistant vice president only got a 3% raise on his or her $250,000 salary, and saying, but hey, Jerry got promoted from the mailroom to data entry. He got bumped from 30,000 up to 45,000. His growth rate is dwarfing the AVP,
Right.
I mean, it's not necessarily apples to apples. So that's a little bit of of manipulation.
Yeah. It's crazy to me. So here's what's nuts to me. As someone who, started paying attention to news in the 90s, and you saw all of these, horrible stories about how Walmart's the worst, and, this many of their employees are still on government assistance, and, it might as well be a sweatshop and all of this stuff. And now when I look at the news, it's like, oh man, Walmart's pretty awesome compared to those jerks over at Amazon. And I don't like, why does everything have to pit, these businesses against each other? Why can't we just be like, oh yeah, they're growing. Walmart's still the 800-pound gorilla in the room. But I don't know. It would be nice if we could just use some logic and facts and be like, yeah, Walmart's got some work to do. Competition is good. You should keep an eye on it, or sell a few things over there. But Amazon's where you really make the money.
Rooting for the underdog is irresistible, especially when it comes to headlines and media stories.
Yeah,
and movies.
Walmart being the underdog, isn't that insane? That's just
Right.
an insane thing to come out of come out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Amazon is making a change which is not going to really impact arbitrage sellers. But I found it interesting. And the reason I found it interesting is because, there were arbitrage sellers, a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, who thought Amazon was doing the wrong thing by offering the cheap, area, the Temu style products on Amazon. And I argued that it actually may be a good thing. It gets people off Temu, brings them back to Amazon, and while they buy their cheap garbage, from China, they go and they buy their name brand skincare stuff that you and I sell. Amazon issued a change. I think this came out today. But of course, they say fast and accurate delivery is essential for customers and often determines where they choose to shop. Over time, we've learned the best way to ensure reliable on-time delivery for customers is to set accurate handling and transit times and choose reliable shipping services. So starting October 25th, for sellers that are shipping into the U.S., the transit time settings for shipping from China to the continental United States, that is all states in the contiguous U.S. excluding Hawaii, Alaska, and any U.S. protectorates, are going to change. Sellers from China will they'll have more transit times ranges from 2 to 4 days all the way up to 14 to 20 days. The maximum transit time is going to be reduced from 28 days to 20 days. So no more 4 days of shipping or handling, and then 28 days of shipping to the US if you're going to buy from a seller overseas. So if they currently have 14 to 28 days as their manual set transit time, it'll automatically be updated to 14 to 20 days as part of this change, and they won't be able to go any further. I think this is a good thing. It's going to force sellers in China who sell directly into the US to be faster. I think this is part of them wanting to compete more with Temu and keep those shoppers who would go there on the Amazon marketplace, which I think will end up being a good thing for US sellers as well, in a couple of ways. Number one, this may make it so that if there are sellers who cannot keep up with this kind of speed, maybe they end up getting booted off or not having the ability to ship into the United States, making a little more space for current private label or arbitrage sellers that are in the US. But for those who can keep up with it, it is going to allow them to continue to get sales on Amazon, keep those shoppers on Amazon, and hopefully buying our stuff as well as the cheap stuff that they're going to get from Temu anyway.
Yeah, it's nice to see him put the screws to somebody else for once.
It feels good, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it makes me feel a little bit better. I'm curious. Yeah, like Luke's saying. We also know that Amazon and Temu have some sort of partnership together, right?
I don't know that Amazon and Temu do. I'd have to check that. I know that TikTok and also Facebook have partnered with Amazon. Matter of fact, my wife just last night said, "Hey, Facebook's asking me to connect our Amazon account to my Facebook. Is that a scam? Did I click on something wrong?" I was like, "Nope, that's a new program they've got. It's all good."
Yeah, it must be TikTok that I'm thinking of then. Yeah, it's interesting. Like where does that traffic? Well, it shouldn't affect the traffic really, right? Because you're just simply getting as a buyer, you're getting a smaller window for delivery. Mm-hmm. If that seller can maintain those time frames and remain on the platform. So the only risk would be a decrease in availability of products. That's
exactly
a slight risk there.
So, but I would imagine if all the Temu sellers can do 20 days, which I don't know, I've never bought anything from that site. I won't buy from them, but I have no idea. I would imagine they'll be able to get it here in 20 days. It seems to have gotten a whole lot easier than it was in years past to ship from China to the US.
Yeah, under normal circumstances, that's the asterisk.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we take questions from the audience, I have a couple of quick hits. I thought instead of doing 4 large pieces, we'd have a couple of quick hits because there are some interesting things out there. One of my favorite people in the entire world, a woman who I think can do almost no wrong, and a woman who is famous for saying it takes a lot of time and money to look this cheap, honey. Dolly Parton has launched a beauty line with 4 lipsticks that are currently available and more products to come later this year and in 2025. Now, why would I bring up, this American royalty, when this doesn't really seem like a big deal? But the reason I bring this up is this is the reason you need to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on. I know this when there's only 4 lipsticks launched, none of them in my shade. So it's not like I'm going to buy them for myself, but I can keep a lookout for arbitrage opportunities. And this just goes to show that, even when there are difficulties in the marketplace, brands get gated, things like that, there's always a new opportunity kind of around the corner. And also, Dolly Parton is just a great woman, and I think she's awesome. Not necessarily a huge fan of her music, except for a couple songs. I'm not a country fan, but I do think Dolly Parton's pretty great lady.
I wish she would have changed the lyrics to like 10 to 4 or something. Like the 9 to 5 maybe wasn't the best idea.
Right.
But you know what? That's not to make a quick hit, just a moderate length hit. However, but we talk about beauty products, and we've even talked to multiple sellers that are trying to back out of the beauty category because it feels like everything's getting locked down, which even that is a misnomer, because what feels like everything is really two major companies shutting down their brand. That's about 90% of what this is. However, I was thinking it was too long for a Twitter post, but I had this idea. It's not quite an article or whatever, but I started doing some research on popular beauty brands from like the 90s and early 2000s. Just to see. I wanted to see the list, and I wanted to see what was still relevant today and what's gone by the wayside. And my hunch was confirmed pretty quickly. Just gathering some of those names, like there was stuff like Bonnie Bell. That was a lip balm that was extremely popular, at least in the circles that I ran with. There was Lip Smackers. I think they might still be around, but they were a much bigger brand a few decades ago. There was a beauty company called Jane, who apparently is still around. But they were very, very big. But it was interesting to look at these brands, and I do have to admit, I guess Reddit is good for something, because that's where most of this information came from. But it's funny to see what comes and goes, and the more I read, and I'll do more research, but I think maybe the Estee Lauders and the L'Oreals and stuff, maybe those are the exception, not the rule. And maybe we're overreacting about all this beauty category in general.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree. I wrote a Twitter post just the other day talking about, zooming out a little bit, which I think is sage advice that we need to do more often. Q4 is right around the corner, and there seems to be a tipping point coming in regards to mobile shopping. So they did a study. Consumers are consistently shopping more on smaller screens, with the first half of 2024 seeing consistent double-digit growth in mobile spend. Adobe Analytics data shows that consumers embraced mobile shopping for purchases that are more frequent but lower in average order value. But they expect larger purchases are going to begin shifting towards smaller screens as well. The rise in mobile shopping can particularly be seen during the holidays. In 2021, 43% of online sales were on mobile. Last year, mobile overtook desktop for the first time with 51% of the online sales. And of course, last year, consumers spent the most on mobile on Christmas Day, which drove 63% of online sales, and they expect 2024 to be 53% of online sales to be on a mobile device. Now, this doesn't surprise me, but as I read this article, I only had one thought: all that wasted cash back. I mean, these poor souls.
Yeah, and who's the first one to figure out how to do cashback on mobile? They're going to have a serious first mover advantage. Whoever can figure that out. This is just this is the youth. I think I could probably predict a lot of stuff that my kids are going to call me a boomer about. whole lot of stuff. I think my batting average would be pretty high. However, the one thing I would not have guessed was that my big TV is going to be a boomer move. Like they're completely fine with these just watching movies on their phone. And I've even asked, I remember I told my son, he was late teens at the time. He was watching something, and I said, he's just, he's laying in his bed or laying on the couch or whatever it was, and just with his phone, just neck, like at a weird angle, like I'd wake up sore in the morning if I watched TV the way he was. And I said, yeah, why don't we just, it's like two presses on, and you can cast that onto the big TV. He said, no, he goes, I'm fine. Like, what? Why are you fine? Like, what? So that's just, that's how they roll, apparently.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy to me. I run to the computer anytime I want to buy something. Matter of fact, I looked up something last night. I watched a YouTube video about it, and then I sent myself a note, and I was like, hey, when you get back to your computer, go buy these things so you can do what you're looking to do. Because I was not going to spend any time trying to hunt for them online. I know, I feel like I should have taken my reading glasses off, so I can't see this stuff. But yeah.
How can you do anything meaningful without 50 tabs accessible
right?
Easily
At all times? You and I are bibliophiles, which that's a lover of books. For those of you in Ann Arbor who may get the wrong idea, it's a lover of books. But legendary businessman and bookstore proprietor Leonard Riggio has passed away. He was the founder of Barnes and Noble. He founded Barnes and Noble after working at a New York University bookstore. Grew Barnes and Noble to be the largest big box bookstore in the world, and even someone who was, it was a fictitious character, but probably maligned in movies like You've Got Mail. I believe that was that it. I can't remember the one where Tom Hanks plays a bookseller, a big box bookstore guy.
I'm not up on my rom-com. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's something I don't tell too many people. I'm a big rom-com guy. But something I did not know is that this guy was also the co-founder of the company that went on to be GameStop. And so he's kind of got his hand in a couple of pieces of kind of pop culture history. Barnes and Noble, of course, fantastic place. You walk in, you immediately have to go to the bathroom for some reason, but it's also a great place to read books and magazines. And then it is, he's got his hand in GameStop, which, of course, there's been movies made about the stock, and it's a place that, people used to love to go and buy video games. But he passed away. He was only 83 and unfortunately had Alzheimer's, but only quit working back in 2016.
Wow. He just did not want kids to go outside, like, ever.
No, not at all, ever. So, all right, let's answer some questions here. Jeffrey, hey guys, I'm looking at product price history. I noticed that in the past, the items sold for much cheaper over several months, but within the last 60 to 90 days, the price is now higher and profitable. Does it ever worry you that the seller or perhaps wholesaler could come back onto the listing and lower the price back to what he or she had it? Do you stay away from these types of products? This might be a good one for both of us to answer. My answer is I would do some research. There might be a reason that the price is up. Maybe you're able to find it pretty easily, but is it a typically hard to find item that most consumers are not going to the right place for? Has a particular wholesaler stopped selling it. Maybe they moved on to greener pastures, or they lost the ability to sell the product, or they, whatever. If the price is higher and it's been holding for some time, I would probably test some and see what happens. There's never any way to know for sure what will happen in the future. And that's why we use the margin of safety, and we don't, buy thousands of units deep on any particular product.
Yeah, I mean, there's cause for concern because it sounds like, based on your research, worst case scenario is negative. That's something you don't want to get involved with. So that does definitely carry weight. Now, not seeing what the Keepa graph looks like, there's a wide range of stories that the Keepa graph could tell. If this is the type of thing where it is just locked in and only a handful of sellers at an unprofitable price, and then they just go out of stock and it's only been, a few days that it's profitable, that's a red flag, clearly, right? If it's more random, right, and there's no, if you don't recognize the seller that was in stock when it was unprofitable, and there's been some time, you certainly don't want to talk yourself out of a profitable product based on a hypothetical that you don't. Like right now, if it's truly random, there's no grounds to think that wholesaler is going to come back. Obviously, that's just a looming fear that we all have to deal with. Amazon could jump on any one of our listings. That could happen. Any ASIN in the entire catalog. So, yeah, you want to figure out where the line is between being smart, cautious in a smart way, and before you cross the line into just making stuff up, just not buying a profitable product based on something that's just a fairy tale.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I'll get to the next question here. Flamingo Flyby, what's going on, man? Do you agree with a positive outlook that either A, AWD will accept case pack SPD, or B, prep centers will be cheaper because of how incentivized Amazon is making AWD? Well, everything that I have heard from any seller using AWD is that it's an absolute nightmare. So I don't know. And can Amazon figure that out? I'd like to think they could, but while they do have one of the greatest logistics operations in the country, it's not that great. They lose a heck of a lot more products than UPS or FedEx does. It seems maybe as many as the United States Postal Service does. I'm not sure, but can they get that under control? I don't know. And will they accept case pack small parcel delivery? I'm not sure. That's not a prognostication I am willing to make. But let's just say that they do. Let's say that they do start accepting case pack small parcel deliveries. Will that make prep centers cheaper? Possibly. I would imagine that there would have to be a lot of prep centers that would go out of business first before prep centers can or start lowering prices. But there's not a lot of margins in prep centers as it is. I know that, I know sellers complain about the high prices of prep centers, but when you break it down, there's just not a ton of room, especially if you go with a prep center where your cost is all in. You got polybag, you got an FNSKU label, maybe a piece of bubble wrap if you need it. You got a box, you've got the labor of the employee, you've got labor turnover, which happens, that the most of the time the employees you have at a prep center are not necessarily going to be people who are on your team for the next 15 years. It might be a job that is a little bit more transigent. where they want to move on to something else, or they get, they move on to a different area, whatever it is. And the cost of hiring and training is really, I was explaining this to my son last night. He got his first job. He's about halfway through his first week. And he was asking questions, and we got onto the topic of, do you know why, it's so expensive to bring on new employees? And I talked to him about, look how much time your manager has spent with you as you're training. Look at all these things you have to learn, all the stuff you have to go through. Like, you have to watch videos and go through your employee handbook. That's all paid time where the company's not actually getting, a return on your time that they're paying you for. So yeah, I don't know how much slimmer prep centers can get in their margins. How nervous do you think prep centers are currently from 1 to 10, with Amazon doing 3PL net positive for OA? I don't know that it would be a net positive for OA. I mean, I don't trust Amazon to intake things. Can you imagine? Let's just say that you could get all of your stuff, to your house. You case pack it as much as you possibly can, and then just send it off to Amazon. And you expect them to polybag it, put an FNSKU label on it, and make sure it goes to the right place. When there are stories about Amazon employees taking new returns, poking holes in boxes and calling them used or unfulfillable, so they don't have to go through the 7-step process of returning the product to your fulfillable inventory. The people who handle your inventory need to care, and employees at Amazon fulfillment centers don't care. Again, the incentives are not aligned. The incentives at an Amazon fulfillment center are its speed, not handling your inventory with care. That's how their numbers are. They've got to, handle so many units per hour. They've got to have, X amount of errors per day and all those other things. That's what they're working towards. So I don't think I don't think anything they do at Amazon when it comes to handling inventory will be a net positive for sellers.
Yeah. Go back to the beginning of the show when we talked about how inefficient they were, with Section 3 fiasco and pesticides and makeup and whatnot. I did see the tweet that you're referring to about poking the hole in and just saying, yep, there's damage to the exterior of the box. I like there's two sides of that. Like people were acting like it was a big deal. They're like, oh, that's why I'm getting stuff back and it's in perfect condition. And Amazon said it was damaged in transit and blah, blah. They're acting like this was the answer to all of these puzzling scenarios that they run into as a third-party Amazon seller. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, welcome to employees of big businesses. Like, where does that not happen? Right? Like, go back. I remember McDonald's. Like, we had, when I worked at McDonald's in high school, we had, there were timers on all the food, right? Like, and you had to, and the managers are always going after food costs and whatnot. Like, we got to keep it, blah, 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 and that was back when you actually made the sandwiches and you put it in the warmer, and you kind of cooked based on forecasts of how busy you thought you were going to be at different times throughout the day. And, right. Like, helping the company line, like, we sold some stuff that was a little bit too old. Right. I mean, I scooped some nuggets into some boxes that had no business leaving that building in anything but a trash can, and then, like, the flip side to it, like we talked about earlier, working fast food, you're going to punch that button. You're going to, hey, drive up. I'll bring it out to you when it's ready, because you got to keep the line moving, because you also have metrics on the total amount of time. Right. And allegedly, back in the day when they had the rectangular 20-piece nugget box, right? Do you remember those way back in, in this is early 90s? I'm not sure how long they carried it, but allegedly in those old school 20-piece nugget boxes, if you recognize your friend's voice in the drive-through speaker, you could fit 32 to 33 nuggets in a 20-piece box, allegedly, from what I've told from coworkers, because that certainly wasn't me. So,
No.
right. So, I mean, there's just stuff happens. Like, people don't care. They don't, no one cares as much about a business as the owners. And you're foolish to think that anybody besides you, if you are the owner, cares as much as you do. Right.
Right. Yeah. HOQ company, what product categories do you tend to source the most? I am a fan of health and personal care and the beauty category. I like items that are small. However, I think the right answer is you don't source the product, you source the data. You go where the data tells you to go. Well, if that's a knife, if it's a tool, if it's a beauty product, if it's a whatever, as long as the data tells you that it's profitable, it sells, and things like that, you should buy it and sell it. We are agnostic when it comes to the actual type of the product, how much I know about it, or anything like that. Now, saying that, it does help you to stick within your circle of competence. If you happen to know a lot about shoes, or you happen to know a lot about beauty products, then it will probably help you to start sourcing in those particular categories. But once you know how to source, that works across every category. Doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah. It's funny. Like, you can get yourself in trouble. Well, not trouble, but you could be doing yourself a disservice by deciding that you want to sell in a certain category without data, just kind of because I, like, for a while there, I was really into health. I was like, man, these bottles of vitamins don't need to be polybag. They've already got the double seals. I was like, this is awesome. They're easy to prep and ship, and Walgreens, Walmart, Rite Aid, CVS. I had all these stores, Target, that had multiple locations within a short drive. So I was like, I could pool a bunch of BOPUS orders. I could really kick some serious ass in health and household. That's what I thought. Yeah, and then I looked at the Keepa category tree, and I saw how small health and household actually is. And then my opinion evolved into what's all this tools and home improvement and industrial stuff all about? Because
Right.
nobody seemed to be talking about it. So then all of a sudden I saw the opportunity in the fact that these seem to be lower traffic categories, right?
Yep.
So it evolves, and I mean, not that when I thought I wanted to do health and household was wrong. I mean, that's it wasn't crazy for me to think, hey, there's probably 20 to 30 stores that I could collect a respectable supply of stuff. That's valid. That made sense. But like you said earlier, you zoom out a little bit, and maybe that's not the most sustainable long-term strategy.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, one of the other things that I also like to do is, if you ever start hearing people say, oh, that category sucks, there's no money to be made there, that's often a signal. That's not just noise. As soon as I hear that, I start digging into it. Wasn't too long ago, somebody said there's no way to make money doing retail arbitrage with tools. And then I went and did some digging, and I found some people doing a massive amount of business in the tools category with retail arbitrage. And there was the signal. And I've seen that happen a ton of other times. Corey, Under Armour, Puma, and New Balance hard gated, crazy if true. I have not checked recently. I know that it seems like I am currently hard gated in Under Armour. Nike is not hard gated. I would need to look at Puma and New Balance. I don't know. I would reserve, big emotions because even, everyone thought Nike was hard gated just a couple of months ago. It was the end of the world. And that ended up not being the case. It all came back. So let's give it a little time. And I see Dre said that he got back into Nike after getting gated. So
there is a wide ranging counterfeit issue that Amazon's dealing with. Clearly, I mean, between sellers with the Section 3 stuff, with these random hard gates that come and go, and nobody seems to know what's going on. Clearly, it's. I mean, I'm betting money that this is the battle against the counterfeiting, and with
absolutely
looming government legislation and hearings upcoming.
Yep. Yeah, I would not doubt for 1 second that with the FTC, FTC's got their magnifying glass out, and they're absolutely trying to clean house before the FBI comes knocking on the door.
You always clean
Flamingo.
before the housekeeper gets there.
Exactly. Does FBM bring the same compliance, toys, button cell batteries issues as FBA? Yep. You list it, and there's a compliance thing. They want it from you. Let's see here. GSD, with shipping costs going up and Amazon hitting sellers with higher fees to keep 2-day free delivery going, I think Amazon's going to have yearly limit on free shipping, maybe 2 per month. That's an interesting take. I've got a feeling that Amazon would continue to increase fees before they take away that free. You got that meme, $12.99 plus $4 shipping. No thanks. But $16.99, that's what I'm talking about.
With free shipping, I think sign me up.
Yeah, I think the market would adjust to that. As I look through more and more Keepa graphs, I am slowly starting to see prices, come up a little bit. It may not be a lot, but enough to cover fees in a lot of places, and that would happen. The sooner that Amazon sellers, now I'm not talking ones who've been around for a while, but the sooner that newer Amazon sellers learn that retailers don't actually pay the fees, okay? Buyers pay the fees. We pass along those fees to customers. But of course, it's hard for newer sellers to really get that.
Yeah. And I can't see Amazon making anything more difficult on the customer, right? I mean, the customer is always right, or whatever's convenient for the customer. I mean, to a fault, I mean, that's because they still that's how they got 2 out of every 3 consumers in the entire country. Right. Yeah. And they still want that number to go higher. The shareholders really want that number to continue to go higher. That's why they
like that
bid on the NBA. That's why they continue to try to add perks and all the stuff to make Prime more attractive, and they only want to get faster and just, like they're going to send people to their homes to take orders eventually in big trucks. Just go get it and just give it to them like 5 minutes after they order it, if they could.
Right. Tony, I appreciate that, man.
Thanks, Tony.
$20 after YouTube fees for Chris Rasick, who's sensitive to the plight of the 50K a month guys. Got a lot of value from that build a 7-figure storefront video. And thanks for the chicken tendies. I appreciate you, Tony.
It wasn't me. I didn't put the extra nuggets in there. What are you talking about, Tony?
Right. Let's see. There was a good question here. Crypto Butthead. Appreciate the name. Everyone check your FBA shipments. They stopped notifying me of discrepancies, and I found 32 shipments from the past 6 months with shortages, including completely lost shipments. Yeah, this is something you should absolutely have a process for. is checking and reconciling all of your shipments at all times. Yeah, 100%. Corey, how do surcharge cost work for FBA inventory? Amazon hasn't released FBA capacity limits for November yet, and worried I could push my limit that month since I'm planning one last RA push in mid-October when I go to Florida for a week. As someone who does strictly FBA, it's definitely a bottleneck I'm worried about. If I recall, Amazon is removing an overage fee. I'll need to double check on that, but I would highly suggest you go and read some of the news pieces in Seller Central, because there was something about overages with Amazon where they were going to be removing the fee. And I thought we talked about it in the past, but I talk a lot, so I don't know what comes out of my mouth half the time.
Yeah, Luke. I was actually thinking about tweeting, just throwing the question out there, like if you refreshed Seller Central half as many times as you do, how much time would you gain per day, do you think, on average? Like a little philosophical question. That's funny.
Right. Let's see here. Crypto, can seller accounts that aren't the brand itself issue IP complaints? Maybe those that have an exclusive agreement with the brand. So here is something crazy. From my understanding, anybody can file an IP complaint. I can go in and I could file an IP complaint against another seller. I could use a fake email address and say that I'm the brand and file an IP complaint. It is not the best system. I don't know if that's changed since the last time I checked, but that's the way it's always been as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, and if you see some of the email addresses of some of these IP complaints, it's clearly not an exclusive club.
Exactly. Do you think anything from Kohl's is easy to find and highly likely price will tank soon? Kohl's or Target or any other chain could face the same end. Offers climb and prices tank. How do you avoid it? If there's a big sale at Kohl's, there's a sale at Target. Yeah, those places, those are low-hanging fruit. Dive deeper. Go to the other stores that are not so trafficked. Find better discount codes. Chris and I did a whole podcast episode on making sure you have the best cost of goods sold on your products. I would go listen to that because there's a ton of information there to make sure that you are paying less than what your competitors are. But yeah, easy places to buy things mean there's going to be more competition because people don't like to do the hard work. Go to page 2, go to page 3 of Google, look deeper, and find other products. And honestly, don't even sell those products. Sell other types of products that aren't sold at Kohl's, at Target, and that's okay too. Looks like we lost Chris. I'm sure he'll be back here in just a minute here. Carmen, can you talk about any tips on how to sell shoes from Marshalls, TJ Maxx, Ross? How do you go about shoe boxes without lids and no brand tags? So you can, according to Amazon's rules, sell shoes in brown generic boxes. Okay. I'm not the biggest fan of doing that personally, but it is, within Amazon's rules. But if it is something that's collectible or super high priced, I would just never do it. With longer check-in times, what's your recommendation for expiration dates on grocery to send into FBA? I would think that you should probably add an extra month or so on grocery expiration dates. Is it worth concentrating on auto ungated brands as a beginner, or is it time better spent getting ungated and popular brands? I don't think that you necessarily need to go out and get ungated in a bunch of brands as a new seller. there are thousands and thousands of brands on Amazon. And so there are ways to sell products. It's just going to be a little bit more work. Jeffrey, for sourcing, would you say that everything starts with looking for a sale and then stacking everything else on top of that? Rewards, cashback, coupons, etc. But 90% of the time, it all starts with a sale. I don't think that it necessarily starts with a sale. It might actually start with a coupon code. If you find a website that that gives you coupon codes, that's okay. But it really just depends on what works for you. You really need to take a shotgun approach, try a few different methods, because I mean, you could go to Keepa Product Finder, look for products that are more likely to be what you like to sell, and you can go in and find those types of products at full price. Sometimes not as much as you used to be able to, but it's still possible. I appreciate that, Flamingo. We're happy to answer these questions. Let's see here. Let's get through these here. I've seen reports of sellers getting suspended because of silent IP complaints that never showed up in Seller Central. Have you guys heard of this? I have heard of people complaining about it, yes, but I don't take anecdotes to heart. I would want to know more information, because really, when you start digging into a lot of these people's stories, their inconsistencies, and there was information somewhere. Um, is it possible? Yeah. Amazon screws up. It happens. But there's usually more to the story. Amazon Con Juan, do you know of any case where a brand took a seller to court? Just wondering if it has ever happened. Yes, it has definitely happened in the past. There have been brands that have taken sellers to court. If I'm not mistaken, there's actually a brand doing it right now that's suing a seller. Apparently, it was a supplements brand or something like that. There have been times in the past when it's been done. I don't think that anything has ever really been like a major case, though. It's just kind of been, hey, get off of our listing. Have you guys tried the Amazon shipping? I'm referring to the one where the shipments are picked up from your home or warehouse. Was considering this for FBM this Q4. What are your thoughts? I have not had the option available to me yet to try it, but I am definitely interested in trying it. I want to see how it goes. My prep center repackages shoes they receive without shoe boxes, and I have no problem so far. Yeah, you can absolutely use those generic brown shoe boxes. So I don't think we're going to get Chris back. There must have been some issue with his internet. But before we go, I want to tell you guys I was browsing Facebook Marketplace the other day, and I came across a listing for one of those big boom boxes from the 90s with a cassette player with the big speakers and all the accoutrements for just $1. But it did say that the volume knob was stuck on 11, and I instantly thought to myself, well, I can't turn that down. But I think that's the show today, guys. We will see you guys next week at 5 p.m. To answer your guys' questions and bring some news your way. I hope you guys absolutely crush this next week and are gearing up for a very profitable and happy Q4. We'll talk to you guys soon.